Hello and welcome to another video. This is going to be a recap video on the 24-hour Grocery Getter Classic at Bearfield, which I competed in over the past weekend. This was a 24-hour endurance oval race that took place on a half-mile and 3/8 mile oval that was organized by one of the Conelanders group who we know from racing JMSF. He works at that track at Bearfield and notified us about the race and talked about having a group of us go race, and kind of organized everything, got a car, and we ended up with him getting NCW, Potato Hadron, Magnet OS, and myself as the team. And we got the I guess I could start off by saying I'm going to kind of give a brief recap of everything that happened. I'm not going to go telling every little detail about it because I'm not a very good storyteller. So I'm just going to kind of give a general overview of the race and a kind of just summary of some of the things that noticed and takeaways from the event. So I guess I'll start with when we showed up Saturday, the day of the race. We showed up around 8 a.m. and the plan was as soon as we showed up to fix a brake line leak that we had, and as soon as I got there, I crawled under the car, tried to find the leak, found it, and our original plan was to cut out the section of bad line. We bought 2 couplers and some brake line, and we just splice in another section of line and call it a day, bleed the brakes, and be done with it. But once I found the location of the leak, it was kind of in between the A-arms. It ran along like the A-arms behind the gas tank, or a part of the frame and bodywork. It essentially, there was no getting to it. You couldn't get a pipe cutter in there to cut it out. Was first problem. And then the next problem was, well, if you kind of try to find a further distance apart to splice it in, there wouldn't have been enough line to do so, at least what I thought. And so what I ended up kind of deciding on is our best bet would be probably to pinch off the line and just go with front brakes only. So we ended up waiting for our parts truck, which had jacks and everything, and had all our tools. Guy driving, name's Brian. He kind of was our crew chief for the weekend. He showed up, and immediately we got the jacking up the car. Got the car jacked up. I got under there and just started bending the line, trying to crimp it with some vice grips and some needle nose and what I could get access to. And I twisted it up and to a Z essentially, just folding it on itself, and I got it kind of, I got it what I thought was pinched off. We put brake fluid in and gave it a shot, and sprays brake fluid everywhere. And of course, since I'm under it and there's no good way of ever working on anything like this, I got covered in brake fluid. So I tried bending it some more, give it another shot, still sprays brake fluid. I ended up bending it into a W, flat, and it started spraying out of the bends. It just stressed the metal enough where the bends were now leaking. So at this point, we're realizing that we couldn't really do that. We're not getting anywhere with that. So while I was working on that, Jimps's uncle, who showed up, actually started tracing the lines from the front to the back, trying to find the one that goes to that location. And he ended up finding that, and while he started working on trying to crimp that line, which was kind of newer metal, had a protective coating on it so it wouldn't rust, it just was a better candidate. He was working on that. I kind of gave the last ditch efforts of trying to just crimp where we were crimping, and ended up snapping the line. It just snapped in half. So at that point, I just started helping them out, and after a lot of swearing and folding and crimping, we ended up getting the line to be crimped enough that it was barely leaking at all. We taped that up and got it taped up, zip tied up, and by that time Jimps had got called away to work on the timing for the race, because he works for the racetrack, and they're having some issues with the timing and transponders, so he was helping them. So NCW hopped in the car and we drove it out to the track, and every car had to be on the track by noon, and by the time we got the brakes and everything sorted out, it was about 11:20. So we didn't leave much time to spare, but we did get it done. After the what seemed like an eternity, waiting till about 1:45, when they finally sorted out all the problems with transponders and got everyone going. We got the race started. Jimps sprinted, and I mean sprinted, from the tower all the way down to the car so he can drive the first stint, which we had planned. We all went back and started watching the first stint, and the first stint kind of set the pace of how the race was going to be, because prior to that, none of us really knew how the race was going to go. It's just we didn't know how aggressive people were going to be, and it also kind of gives you an idea of what people you have to watch out for and those kind of things. And there was definitely, right off the bat, you could see a few people that are like just right out of the gate flying. Like one of the cars was a Ford Focus RS that had been wrecked at some point, and it was, as you can imagine, a rocket ship. That thing took off and was flying right off the get-go. And there's a couple other cars just like Red Nova, very aggressive driving, and you can see Jim's trying to he was he was being very cautious, very conservative, and understandably so. Took it easy and kind of just did his first stint of and nothing really eventful in that stint. I think next thing I'll go over is that my first stint, because I was actually, so the kind of order we went in was it was Jimps, then Magnet, then NCW, followed by myself, and then last was Potato. So NCW had quite the eventful stint with that. That was when it seemed like people got real crazy. There's a few incidents, and crashes, and stuff, and I'd rather have him tell the story of his stint. So I'll skip to my first stint. My first stint, I just, much like Jimps, I tried to be just very conservative, get a feel for the car, get a feel for the track, because I never driven on an oval, never driven on that specific oval, and I didn't know quite what to expect, so I just took it real easy, and just as the stint went on, tried to go faster and faster, and I made it through and completed my main goal, which was not crash. No contact. I had one new pants moment where I had a car shoving in on my inside, and I looked to my left instinctually because I just out of nowhere I see a car on my left, so I look over left as I'm going into the fourth turn out of the oval, which has a wall on the outside, and so naturally when you look to your left you steer to the right a little bit. So I looked back straight and I was steering right into a wall, so I quick tapped the brakes and got it to kind of settle and kind of steer back in the direction that I wanted, and got it under control before I got even close to the wall. But I definitely felt the need for new pants after that. After that, we kind of just we had I think during Jimps's second stint, we had that red Nova who was driving real aggressive take out our driver's side mirror. So kind of through our second stint, we were all kind of trying to figure out the best line to drive, and pretty much all of us wanted to run the inside line just because we couldn't see out the driver's side and make a good have good sight line. So after we did kind of one cycle of stints, after that someone in the chat for the live stream that that Magnet set up for us that had a cockpit view of our race mentioned, why don't you just go to store and get mirrors? So myself and NCW went, and I got this big, huge panoramic mirror that just clips onto a standard rear view mirror, and I bought a bunch of different little mirrors, stick-on mirrors, and we went back and ended up putting that on there, and that made a huge difference in our confidence level because you could actually see cars and look around, and it was really useful and made our lives much nicer. After that, it was pretty boring. Nothing too much. We were just doing our stints, enjoying driving the car. We would check in the brakes every time we did a driver change. We'd check the brake reservoir. just look into the different little things, make sure everything's running good. And it ran pretty smooth into the night. We had one small incident where Potato got into the back of someone, bent up the hood a bit, but really didn't do much damage. We just had a little concern that if we popped the hood, we might not be able to get it closed properly again. So we didn't really open the hood much after that. So that was the only real incident we had, taking us to kind of the night shift. Now, as night came, NCW got to I think first kind of night. I want to say first night stint was myself. I don't think it was myself. I do remember just that. No, because what it worked out being was, yeah, I got the first night stint, and that went perfectly fine. No real problems. Then we went through a cycle, and then by the time it came back around to me, it was about, I want to say 2 a.m. And I was tired, and I was nodding off and just kind of in and out, fall asleep for a few seconds, wake up, and also I was pretty much I was already ready to go while I was doing this because it was really getting cold at night. It dipped down into the low 50s, and then later into the morning hours, it got all the way down in the 40s, like 47, 46 degree range, which I was not prepared for. Coming off of 90 degree weather back home. And so I was already dressed in my fire suit and helmet and everything to keep warm. So as I'm dozing off there, NCW rolls up in the car and honks the horn to wake me up. Quick get up, quick go jump in the car and go to do my stint. And as I'm doing my stint, I'm just driving it hard and kind of getting the hang of things. And I'm starting to think to myself, by this time, we had lost one of our spare tires because Potato was hit by a car that punctured a tire, which we changed. So we were down one tire, and when I went through my stint, I drove pretty hard, a little harder than I had been through all my other stints. And when I got out of my stint, I looked at the tires and was like, oh, these tires, I think it looked like they were starting to blister, and it looked like I was running them too hard. So I thought to myself, we might want to kind of calm down and not drive so hard, because if we keep it up, we might not have enough spare tires, because we only had 4 total to help with punctures, and they're different sizes. And because of that, one of the rules was you couldn't run staggered sizes from left to right. You can have staggered sizes from front to back, but just not left and right. So that means in order for us to be legal, we can only replace 2 front tires and 2 rear tires for the entire race. And so I kind of started thinking, after I saw those tires, I might want to calm it down and be a little bit easier on the tires. And after I got done, it was Potato in the car, and most other drivers Jimps was sleeping, Magnet was sleeping, NCW, once he got done with his stint, or actually I think it was when I got done with my stint, he said, I'm going to crash for a bit, and went to sleep. So it was just myself and Potato up, who was driving. And sometime into Potato's stint, actually I think it was getting to the point where it was going to be Jimps' stint, so it was getting pretty much right at the end of Potato's stint. All of a sudden I see the car pull in, and I see that there's damage to it, and I was like, oh no. And he pulls in and says, I sorry, I binned it. And what happened, it looked like he said he ended up running it wide, pushing too hard, and got in the marbles and collected the front end into the wall and spun him around and got the back of the car in the wall. And I think, as much as he didn't agree, I think a lot of that had to deal with the tires going off, because when he pulled it in, we noticed, myself and Brian noticed that the front right tire was on cords for like a good I would say like 2 to 6 inches on a good portion of wheel was nothing but banding. There was no rubber left. And how the tire didn't pop is beyond me, but he probably, he just pushed it hard, not knowing that tire was completely gone, and pushed wide into the marbles and collected the wall. But I don't think he's willing to accept that wasn't necessarily 100% his fault. There's a lot of the car that dealt with that. I think he beat himself up a little too much about it, especially going into a 3 a.m. stint. Stuff like that happens. So he pulled in, we replaced that tire, and once I saw that tire and we replaced it, I was like, okay, we only have 2 tires left. And it is now 4 a.m. We still have over 12 hours to go. we weren't even halfway done, or actually we're a little over halfway done. So we had a long haul ahead of us, and I was like, all right, we need to do something about this. So I went out on the track because everyone else had been sleeping, and I didn't. Once NCW went to bed, I realized I don't want to leave the pits in case something happens to the car to go wake up Jimps, because if something happens to the car and I'm out waking up Jimps, then Potato's there by himself and he doesn't have anything to do, or like anyone to help him. So I stayed there, and probably good that I did, because he ended up pulling up and having that issue. So I jumped in the car and I told him to find Jimps and let him know, and so that way he can get into his stint when I get back. And I was gonna do a shorter stint. And by the time I got in the car and got on the track and started driving, I was realizing it'd probably be best to just go to when the normal stint was supposed to end, because Potato, by the time he pulled in, was actually a little over his stint and into the next person's stint. So I putzed around and went really slow around the track and just focused on saving tires, and did that for a little under an hour. I pulled in, and I told Jimps, all right, take it real easy. You can take it real easy on the tires, 'cause we need to save them. And I told him what I was doing for the saving the tires, and then I was like, all right, I need to go at least try to go to bed, because it's now 4 a.m. and I other than dozing off a couple times before it was my stint and NCW waking me up, I hadn't slept, and I was pretty tired. Like when we were changing the tire out, when Potato came in, I was struggling to screw lug nuts on because I was so tired and I just couldn't hold them straight and thread them on straight. So I knew I needed to sleep or else I'm not going to be able to function properly, and I'll be more of a hindrance than a benefit to the team. So I went and tried to get some sleep, and I ended up getting a little bit of sleep, like maybe hour and a half before I just called it quits, and it's like, I'm going to go back up and just try to be useful. So I went up, actually. Got notes. I went up, and as I was going up, Jimps was coming down, and he goes, I just lost a tire, and he goes, I was getting ready to come in, and blew a tire, and I think it was once we had that happen, it kind of set in that crap, we only have one more tire to use, like one more spare tire to go to, because that was the third tire that we had replaced by then. And I think that's when everyone's like, all right, we need to just settle down and focus on doing nothing but tire saving. So we pretty much coasted after that. Just took it real easy. Every one of us went out there. We were just focused on saving tires. We didn't take risks. We did pass when we needed to pass, but other than that, we would stay in our line, make sure we didn't do anything stupid to lose tires, and just were real easy with it, and came just as we were going, got closer and closer to the end, and we just kept going and kept wondering if we were going to make it, especially going into the last my last stint. I was being very careful and really worried about whether the tires were going to last, because we noticed that the tires were getting a little rough, and I made it through my stint. We got the Jimps's stint, which we designed it so he could be the final stint and finish out the race as he really deserved it. And we just got him out there, and we watched that entire stint from start to finish, just sat there and watched it from the fence, and it was the most nerve-wracking stint to watch. It's just lap after lap as time would go down, we get closer and closer to finish, and just worrying about at any second the tires can let go. One of the tires, because we had a front tire going down, we had a rear tire going down. By the time I got out of the car and he got in, the rear tire was starting to show some banding, and the front tire was not far behind it. So it was really stressful, but he took it easy. He didn't push it any harder. He started to do a little bit of driving a little bit faster, but then quickly just went back to driving carefully, and we ended up finishing the race all 24 hours. And it wasn't even remotely an expectation of mine to finish all 24 hours. My hopes and expectations of what I would like to have done was to have all of us at least do one stint and drive it. And that I wasn't sure we were even going to be able to do, especially with how kind of dire our situation with the brakes were, and getting them done in time for the race. It was there was no guarantee that that fix that we did was going to hold for this entire 24-hour race. It's astonishing that that did work, because it definitely was not the best solution, but it worked. And it that really was something. It's still, I don't really have words for it. It's hard to believe that it happened. It's hard to believe everything went as smooth as it did, because really the only thing that went wrong with that car was tires, and we that was only because we were using used tires and only had 4 of them. Like, that was 100% just not knowing what to expect in the tire wear, not properly kind of being prepared for that, as none of us have done this before, so we didn't know what we were going to need. And it, other than that, mechanically, it was perfect. There's no overheating, no even sign of overheating. It never got hot. There was no running troubles. The engine ran fine. It shifted fine. Never had issues with it shifting, even though we didn't shift much. It was just, it went incredibly smooth, and couldn't ask for better performance out of the car. The car was tremendous, and it didn't let us down at all, and it was really something. And that kind of covers the racing, the race aspect of it, and how everything went. And like I said, I'm over the moon about how it went. But kind of something I thought a lot about the day after, and a little bit even today, and some when I was driving my way home, which I did the same day as the race because I didn't have a place to stay, so I drove 550 miles back home after a 24-hour race where I only had about 2 hours of sleep at most. But what I thought about was just kind of some of the things was just really cool about this whole experience, which is like Magnet. I didn't say it to him when we were there, and I kind of feel bad for it, but he is incredible. Magnet, if you weren't there for the stream for the race, which there was a stream, Magnet built a Raspberry Pi for the race, coded it to do a live stream using mobile data and a camera that we taped into place, and he had it streaming to both YouTube and Twitch, and it was absolutely insane. He did an excellent job setting it up. It worked pretty much flawlessly for all things considered. We did lose the stream in the overnight hours, which we're still not entirely sure what happened that caused it to lose it. We're thinking maybe dust or heat had something to do with it, because we covered it with a bag and that fixed it. We don't know why, but it fixed it. But that whole thing went incredibly smooth, and I think it really, it enhanced the whole experience of this race tremendously. This race would have been fantastic by itself. Would have been a really good time, but having the stream going and having people we know watching the stream and saying that they're watching it with friends and family. Uh, People were really excited about being able to watch the race, and it was just really cool to see and having the instant kind of reaction and response from people watching the stream was fantastic, and it was really cool. And it kind of allows me to talk about the next point, which is NCW. Uh, I watched some of his onboard, like some of the stream while he was driving, and that man, like NCW is a madman. It's if you've been around and you know NCW, you know he's a bit of a crazy person, but he is an absolute madman. Like he, while driving this car in an endurance race, is using one hand to drive, pointing at people on the track, yelling at them, and just pointing out things on the track, and still racing his line and being competitive and just being extremely entertaining. Like, it was, I almost like didn't want to put it down and just watch his stint from the stream, because he was just incredibly entertaining and a blast to watch. And I could only wish to be half as entertaining as he was when he was going. I spent most of my time just being overly concerned about destroying the car, but NCW did a fantastic job of being entertaining while also racing and doing a good job. He didn't have any contact with anyone. He didn't crash it. He didn't do anything that really jeopardized the car. He did a fantastic job for someone who wasn't speaking or worrying about a stream, but he did that while speaking and being entertaining. It's just incredible. It still blows my mind what he was able to do while racing that car. The other thing, next one is Potato. Watching him race was really cool, really incredible. He is a tremendous racer. He made our little Honda Accord look like a fast car. He was passing people all left and right. He was moving all over the track, getting around people, and just making our car seem 10 times better than it was. It looked like it was a completely different car. And it was truly incredible to watch him race, and he did a fantastic job just setting like a real fast pace for the car and doing a great job. That was real fun to watch. I liked watching his stints from the side of the track when I could stand long enough, when my legs weren't killing me. And then last one is Jimps. Jimps, I think, was kind of closer to me and being cautious and just driving conservatively, very, very consistent. Just did exactly what he needed to do to get the job done. He just, you could tell that he had some nerves when he was getting in the car, and it was cool to see as the race progressed, like from his first stint, you can tell he was very nervous, and then as he progressed, just get less and less nervous and more excited about how well we were doing. That was really fun, because just the excitement as we got just closer and closer to the end and actually doing a full 24 hours, and that kind of was dawning on him. You'd see his excitement kind of just coming to the surface, and him relaxing a bit from the stress, because I can only imagine a lot of stress setting this whole thing up and being worried about something going wrong, and all those things and being worried about all the, so like the brake problem and stuff like that, and being worried that something go wrong. It was fun to see that kind of go away and him just enjoying himself and enjoying the moment. That was really cool. And then for me, this is something I kind of reflected on a lot. My experience and everything. Like I said, I was very conservative going out there, and I was mostly concerned about wrecking the car and making sure I don't wreck the car, and being just very cautious about what I did. And kind of made me think about something that I've always kind of thought, and kind of realized something, that I am a really, really shit race car driver. I just, I do not have what it takes to be a race car driver. I can't shut off the part of my brain that is worried about the kind of consequences of what I'm doing. I was constantly concerning myself about, all right, I can't enter this turn too hard or else I'm going to scrub the tires too much and then we'll not make it. I was constantly overthinking everything when I'm racing, and it goes towards kind of what I've always thought, and that I don't think I'm a very good racer, and that kind of proved it to me. Is I don't think I'll ever do any serious racing ever. I think the extent of racing I'll ever do is endurance racing. Something with endurance racing, because it's, you don't need to drive on the edge and do those kind of things. It allows you to not have to be a race car driver. So I think that is the only way I'll ever race again, is doing something like this. I don't think I'm ever gonna even, it's just, I don't think I can do racing. I don't have the raw talent that's needed, and I don't think I have the mental capacity to get over some of the things that I do to become a racer. I just don't think it's a thing that I can do. I think something I could do and would be better at is just being like either like a crew chief or someone in charge of doing strategies. I think that would probably be what I would be better at, because I can look at the bigger picture and do those kind of things. I can't do the racing. So I think doing this 24-hour race kind of confirmed something I thought, and kind of killed some dreams of maybe trying to getting into some vintage racing or stuff like that. I don't think I'm going to do that now. It's just, I don't think I'm kind of made out to be racing. It's just, I don't think it's for me. I'm kind of interested to see what other people's viewpoints were on the race and how they felt about the race and what they thought. If they kind of learned anything like that. Kind of curious to see what other people have to say about the whole experience. Overall, this whole 24-hour race was surreal. It was incredible. It went amazing. It was, I would say, probably the best vacation I've had since I was like a little kid. It's like where we did like traveling with family. There's some of that stuff. It was the best vacation I've had in many years. It was incredible. I had a better time than I did at PAX, and I'm not saying that to kind of detract away from PAX West, where I just came back from, which was a really good experience. It's just that this race was that good. It was that enjoyable. The whole thing was incredible. I I just couldn't have had a better time doing it. It was incredible. It's I think part of what made it that good and made it that enjoyable was the fact that it was something that we all had uh, deep kind of feelings for of racing, and uh, we all are kind of committed to wanting to do good and have a good time with this. It it allowed us to be kind of fully immersed in, or myself to be fully immersed into this race, and all I could think and focus on is what we're doing with the race and doing everything we need to do to have a good time. And I think that is what really set it apart and made it such an enjoyable experience, is that it's just I was fully immersed in doing nothing but what we needed for this. And I think what kind of made me realize that was I think near the end, like real close to the end, Jim's was talking about uh, schoolwork and stuff being like something he's gonna have to do, and it's like something along the lines of it's gonna be really hard to do schoolwork now or something like that. And it made me think I hadn't thought about work, anything work, since I showed up there. Like not once did I ever even have a remote thought about work, and that's I think the first time I've had that happen since I've been working at my position, like where the position I'm currently at. I've always had some amount of like thought process of going back to work because when I'm not there, obviously stuff happens that I'm gonna have to deal with, and things could be going wrong. So I always have that going on in the back of my head. But at this, I never had a single thought about it. Never crossed my mind. I was just having a tremendous time racing. So I think that's what really set this apart. It was a vacation for me, and this race was incredible. And I can't thank the people who helped get this help this happen, like Jimps, his family, everyone in his family that helped out. I had a lot of his family show up to the race, and they were there to help us when we were getting ready for the race. They were there to cheer us on. They helped us clean up, and they were extremely supportive and really nice people to meet, and really made the whole thing really enjoyable. And I can't thank them enough. And I hope that in the future we can do more stuff like this. It it was amazing, and I I hope I hope that sometime soon we'll be able to kind of go through the footage and stuff and find out how we did overall as of recording this now on Tuesday. The official results haven't been posted yet, so I'm not sure how we did. But the last time we kind of checked, we're somewhere between 4th and 11th or something like that place. So anywhere within that range would be incredible, considering we had no expectations of even finishing. So it's really neat, and I, I'm just kind of over the moon about the whole experience, and I just look forward to hearing the other guys have to say, and then just hope that we can do this again in the future. So, thanks for watching. I hope you kind of enjoyed the recap, and I will hopefully see you around, and I'm gonna be I'm honest, I'm probably not gonna be producing many videos, so the next video you might see is probably gonna be actually, now I'm thinking about it, mudrunner. Next thing you might see is just stuff from doing TTC with Spawn and those guys. So if you're not from my regular group of people watching for the recap on the race and you're just here for my other content, you might see some stuff from TTC depending on how things go. I might post my perspective of the events. So with that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.